Fiona really can't grasp what your father saw in you sometimes. Fiona seethed as her voice sliced through the silence of the morning kitchen. Her words hovered like a dagger over the unwashed dishes in the sink. Without a word, Tegan, a steady 26-year-old, paused, her coffee mug suspended midair. Despite her innocence, she hadn't even had breakfast yet. A biting reply clawed its way up her throat. But engaging directly with Fiona was a battle she rarely won. Tegan had moved in with Fiona, the woman her father had married a decade ago, shortly after her father passed away unexpectedly 6 months back. As the sole inheritor of her father's hard-earned legacy, Tegan felt compelled to stay. It seemed a fitting tribute in her father's honor. Being his only child, she imagined juxtaposing their grief might bridge a connection after her mother's passing left her alone at 12. Yet, Fiona apparently wasn't seeking companionship in mourning, she was after dominance. Tegan initially attributed Fiona's sharp remarks to stress, choosing to ignore them. Her father had genuinely cherished Fiona, and Tegan clung to the thought that some goodness lay within her. However, as days bled into weeks, Fiona's barbs about Tegan's choice of clothing, how she idled her time, or even her penchant for certain books became more frequent. "Your dad always thought you were lost in dreams," Fiona would say, her smirk slicing as deep as words. Or she'd scoff, "No wonder you're single. Who'd want someone so scattered?" But the cutting words were only part of it. Odd things began to happen. Tegan's cherished ceramic mug vanished and later reappeared shattered in the trash bin. The thermostat often mysteriously cooled the house to a chill, though Fiona insisted she'd never touched it. Tegan dismissed these incidents, unwilling to raise a fuss. After all, Fiona had been her father's partner for 10 years, and since he had loved her, there surely was something redeemable. Yet, Tegan's certainty wavered that morning as the cabinet slammed and muttered aspersions floated under Fiona's breath. As the hours ticked by, the tension between them thickened like fog. Fiona's demeanor was noticeably more frazzled, her movements frantic around the house, her ire quick to ignite over trivial annoyances. Overhearing Fiona's terse conversation later, Tegan's heart constricted. "We'll discuss this when she's gone," Fiona barked before retreating to her room, slamming the door behind her. Was Fiona's sinister she really about her? Pushing the thought from her mind seemed tough as unease settled in, whispering a sinister suggestion that everything wasn't as it seemed. Tegan's life with her father was a harmonious duet. After losing her mother, they formed a fortified duo against the world, bound by trust and mutual care. Her father, a diligent worker, ensured Tegan wanted for nothing. She responded by excelling academically and steering clear of trouble, embodying the daughter who never provoked worry. Then Fiona entered their lives when Tegan was 15. With a welcoming smile and shared laughter with her father, it wasn't easy adjusting to a new presence. Still, her father's newfound happiness was heartening enough for Tegan to accept it. But the sweetness soured somewhat after the wedding. Fiona moved in, and her sugary remarks came laced with pricks. "Oh, Tegan, you're so intelligent, but wouldn't more friends be nice? Or you're amazingly independent, but everyone needs refinement." Tegan let these discreet criticisms slide away back then. But now, sitting in the very house that should have been her sanctuary, those honeyed insults felt more like wounds. Her father's intent in leaving her everything was clear. The house, the investments, the burgeoning business, Tegan's future, safeguarded. It wasn't a slight to Fiona. He trusted she'd be just, caring for Tegan as her own. Tegan desperately wanted to honor that trust, yet Fiona seemed miles away from reciprocating. Even before Tegan moved in, Fiona's reservations were barely masked. "It'll be an adjustment for both of us," she had stated with a rigid smile, "but it's what your father wished." Yet, nothing felt adaptable. It felt charged, as though Tegan's homecoming was a calculated upheaval in Fiona's orderly existence. The air crackled with tension and unyielding undercurrent, as if the very atmosphere was conspiring against Tegan. Everything felt like an unending test, a relentless game where the rules kept changing, all controlled meticulously by Fiona. She held the reins over every aspect of the house, from the timing of bills to the placement of furniture. Any offer Tegan made to assist was met with a dismissive wave. "You wouldn't comprehend the responsibilities of managing a household," Fiona would often retort, her voice dripping with disdain. Despite this, Tegan clung to the hope that things might improve. She convinced herself that Fiona's abrasive demeanor was a manifestation of her own grief, a coping mechanism for the loss they both shared. But the small signs grew harder to ignore. The nightly phone calls cloaked in secrecy, the sharp barbs delivered with surgical precision, the gaze Fiona planted upon her like she was an unwelcome guest. The family her father left behind seemed to slip further from her grasp, like sand sifting relentlessly through her fingers. A gnawing apprehension twisted within her as she replayed Fiona's earlier cryptic phone call in her mind. "We'll talk when she's gone." The words echoed ominously, their meaning like a dark seed growing in her thoughts. Fiona's previous behavior had always bordered on domineering, but lately, her actions felt cloaked in something darker, more sinister. At the dinner table, Fiona's voice carried an unsettling cheerfulness even as she probed, "You're quiet tonight." Her eyes scrutinized Tegan, though the smile that graced her lips failed to reach them. "Just tired," Tegan replied weakly, forcefully matching Fiona's smile. Fiona lingered on her with a final piercing look before focusing back on her wine. "Make sure to get enough rest. You've looked rather pale lately." The words landed heavier than they should, reinforcing Tegan's own awareness of her recent malaise, tiredness, nausea, headaches. She dismissed these symptoms as stress, but their onset coinciding with her move prompted a deeper concern. Restlessness gnawed at her that night, driving her to Fiona's room in her absence, embarking on a search for the truth she feared but needed to uncover. Her instincts screamed against the idea of invading Fiona's privacy, yet she couldn't quell the feeling something vital lay hidden there. Starting at the desk, she sifted through neatly stacked papers, eyeballing meticulously written bills, receipts, and letters, all seemingly innocent. Her gaze landed on an open laptop, temptation urging her to look. Confronted with Fiona's emails, Tegan's heart pounded as she stumbled upon a conversation with someone named Nolan, the subject line inexplicably labeled "Next Steps." Opening the email thread, the messages exchanged between Fiona and Nolan unraveled before her eyes, her stomach twisting with dread. "Is she still there?" "I thought you'd handled this by now," Nolan demanded. "These things take time," Fiona countered with irritation. The clock's ticking, Nolan pressed, brewing a lurking urgency Tegan couldn't ignore. Her pulse quickened when confronted with foul financial motives entwined with a mention chilling in its implication: Tegan's removal. Tegan reeled back, pressing a hand against the edge of the desk to steady her trembling legs. It was no longer baseless paranoia. Fiona and Nolan's conspiracy aimed directly at her was unmasking itself. Swiftly shutting the laptop, she retreated to her room, locking the door behind her as she mulled over every deceitful moment, every disturbing behavior. Fiona underestimated her resolve. What Fiona controlled wasn't just a house, it was Tegan's life, and Tegan felt the embers of defiance flare within. Amidst the dawn's light breaking through her window, Tegan awoke to the clinking of dishes, Fiona's off-pitch humming emerging from the kitchen downstairs. Her stomach churned, not from hunger, but from the weight of the horror she had uncovered. Hastiness could unravel everything. Whatever Fiona and Nolan were orchestrating, the wheels were already in motion. Impulsivity could cost her a crucial opportunity to thwart their plans. Lying on her bed, scrolling through her phone, the exchanged emails burned vividly in her memory, carving a map of determination to counter their plot. She knew this was not just Fiona's theater of control. It was her life stage, and she would stand, rescuing her story from the edges of a sinister script. The morning light streamed into the room, but Tegan felt it only amplified her inner turmoil. What she needed was irrefutable evidence, something concrete she could take to the authorities. The breakfast table was a battlefield of sorts. Fiona served up eggs and toast with an unnerving enthusiasm, eyes fixed sharply on Tegan. "Busy day ahead?" Fiona inquired, her voice dancing on a tightrope between genuine curiosity and something darker. Tegan nodded, avoiding her gaze, forcing down a few bites despite her churned-up stomach. The hollow smile on Fiona's lips grew as she sipped her coffee, seemingly satisfied with Tegan's submission. After breakfast, Tegan clutched a hastily invented alibi as she made her escape. "I'm meeting Rory for coffee," she announced, grabbing her coat. Fiona's expression wavered almost imperceptibly before she regained her composure. "Of course, tell her I said hello," she replied, her voice attempting warmth. Once outside, Tegan called Rory with urgency, her voice betraying the tremors within. "Tegan, what's going on?" Rory's voice was immediately concerned. "I need to meet," Tegan breathed, the enormity of her suspicion choking her words. "I think Fiona's trying to. I can't even say it." Rory's insistence cut through the phone. "Trying to what?" Tegan settled on a simple plea. "Just come to Café Luna." At the cafe, Rory was already waiting, her expression a blend of anxiety and steadfast support. Tegan laid everything out, the emails, the veiled threats, her unsettling symptoms. Rory's face clouded with deep worry as she listened. "This is serious," Rory urged, her voice firm. "You need to alert the police." Tegan nodded, though her insides quivered. "I need solid proof." "Suspicions alone won't suffice," she confessed. Rory's determination lit a spark of reassurance. "We'll gather evidence." "Whatever it takes," she affirmed, her words lending Tegan a much-needed anchor in the storm. Formulating their plan, Rory suggested installing a covert camera in the kitchen to capture Fiona's activities on film and document any suspicious exchanges. Tegan balked at the intrusion, but acknowledged that desperate times required desperate measures. As she returned home, her heart pounded in sync with her footsteps. Fiona might think she controlled the board, but she had misjudged her opponent. The house, colder than before, wrapped Tegan in its chill as she slipped inside. Fiona sat feigning interest in a magazine, eyes darting up as Tegan entered. "Coffee with Rory was pleasant, yes?" Fiona queried, her tone as sweet as wrought. "Fine," Tegan replied, retreating to her room before Fiona could pry deeper. Once safely behind a locked door, she produced the tiny camera Rory had provided, pondering its clandestine placement in the kitchen where Fiona's guard might slip. That night, Tegan waited until she heard Fiona's rhythmic breathing, ensuring she was asleep. The house was draped in a tense silence as Tegan moved stealthily downstairs. In the kitchen, she positioned the camera unobtrusively behind decorative jars, a vantage point discreet enough to remain hidden yet capable of capturing the room's secrets. Over the following days, tension wove itself into Tegan's routine, every moment charged with the knowledge that the camera was watching. Fiona's behavior grew increasingly erratic, each reprimand and furtive phone call tightening the coil of suspicion. One afternoon, Tegan retrieved the camera, locking herself in her room to review the footage. Initially, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Then, on the third night, the footage revealed Fiona at the counter, furtively pouring a white powder into a jar labeled sugar, eyes darting to the doorway, alert for witnesses. A leaden dread clenched Tegan's stomach. This was more than suspicion. It was real. Immediately, she reached out to Rory, her voice trembling through the receiver. "I have evidence," Tegan whispered, desperation and fear twining in her words. "What did you find?" Rory pressed. "Fiona's been tampering with the food. I have her on camera, putting something in the sugar." Rory's silent, heavy pause said more than words could. Finally, she urged, "Tegan, you need to leave there, now. Come to my place." Tegan hesitated, eyeing her closed door. "If I just disappear," she whispered, "Fiona will know. We can't tip her off yet." Caught in a web of shadowy fear, Tegan realized she needed a solid plan. As she sat in her dimly lit apartment, Rory's voice crackled through the phone, steadying her. "So, what's your next move?" Rory's question hung heavy. Tegan took a deep breath, the gravity of her situation anchoring her resolve. "I'll compile everything, emails, recordings, everything, and then head to the police. But it has to be perfect." I need more time, she explained. Painstakingly, she promised Rory she'd be vigilant, though an uneasy knot wound in her stomach hinted at a longer battle. The following morning unfurled with Fiona swaying to a cheery tune in the kitchen, an act that felt more like a stage performance than a breakfast preparation. Her mood was unsettlingly bright as she offered Tegan a plate of scrambled eggs, her gaze uncomfortably fixed as she said, "You look exhausted lately. This will help, just for you." The sight of the eggs, combined with a skeptical glance at the sugar jar, ignited a rapid-fire heartbeat in Tegan. Composing herself, she mumbled, "Thanks," feigning a bite while discreetly rearranging the food on her plate. As soon as Fiona disappeared from view, Tegan swept the eggs into a plastic bag, safeguarding another piece of evidence. That afternoon, scrutinizing the camera footage unearthed another layer of dread. Fiona, mid-call with someone named Nolan, paced fiercely. "She's still here," Fiona snapped, laden with frustration. Nolan's voice, though distant, resonated chillingly clear. "Stop wasting time. The lawyer's patience is thinning, and as long as she's alive, complications grow." The phrase rang with lethal intent, "the longer she's alive," turning casual suspicion into a stark countdown. That day, urgency drove Tegan to consolidate her damning collection: video footage, emails, and now tainted food. Every artifact painted a deliberate mosaic of malice. As dusk cloaked the town, Tegan reached out to Rory once more. Her voice quivered, yet her resolve held firm. "I've got enough. Tomorrow, the police." Rory's immediate insistence left no room for argument. "Stay with me tonight." Grabbing essentials and her gathered evidence, Tegan crafted a simple cover. Heading to Rory's for a girls' night, she told Fiona, masking her tension with practiced nonchalance. Fiona barely questioned, her attention elsewhere, yet her departing remark sent an icy tendril down Tegan's spine. "Enjoy your night, Tegan," Fiona called after her, tone light but eyes foreboding. "You never know when it might be your last." Rory's apartment was a sanctuary, warmed by lavender and gentle music, a refuge from Fiona's oppressive domain. "You're safe here," Rory assured, handing over a steaming mug of tea. Tegan hugged it tight, a tether to sanity. "I hope they believe me. What if they think I'm just paranoid?" Tegan voiced her fear. "You've seen it all," Rory countered with conviction. "You're prepared. They can't ignore the truth." The next day, armed with the ammunition of truth, Tegan and Rory stepped into the police station. Tegan's heart thundered as she unveiled her proof: the emails, the damning footage, and the food sealed as evidence. She recounted Fiona's behavior, the disturbing symptoms she'd endured, their sinister plot now laid bare. Detective Fallon, a formidable woman in her 40s, absorbed every word, her questions striking with precision and devoid of doubt. "You've done well, Tegan," Fallon assured after a thorough review. "This is serious, and we'll act accordingly. We'll test the food and obtain a search warrant. Fiona and her accomplice won't evade justice." A flicker of hope sparked in Tegan as the day progressed. Detective Fallon's call was the lighthouse in her storm. "You were right," Fallon confirmed. "The food tested positive for a controlled substance. In large doses, it could have been lethal." Relief washed over Tegan, her instincts vindicated, her courage validated against the encroaching darkness. A single call changed everything. Tegan felt the tendrils of dread tightening around her as she answered the phone late that evening. Detective Fallon's voice was steady, yet urgent. "We've verified the substance. It could have been deadly," she explained, "and we're executing the search warrant now. Stay ready, we'll keep you posted." Relief wavered within Tegan's heart, though it was soon overshadowed by Fiona's call. Her voice, chilling in its calmness, floated through. "Tegan, enjoying your time away. Just wanted to inform you I'm making some changes here. Don't bother coming back tonight. Everything's been taken care of." The cryptic message left Tegan's blood cold with dread. Panicked, Tegan immediately contacted Detective Fallon, recounting Fiona's unnerving call. "She's on edge," remarked Fallon. "She senses something's not right, but doesn't know the extent of your actions. Remain where you are and let us handle this." The following morning, Fallon delivered an update that was a lifeline in the raging storm. "We searched the premises this morning," she detailed. "Fiona and Nolan are in custody. We uncovered documents corroborating your claims of financial interference in your father's estate." Tegan exhaled deeply, releasing breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "It's really over," she stammered. "It is," Fallon confirmed, crediting Tegan's foresight for ensuring her safety. Relief washed over Tegan as she sank into Rory's couch, the weight of her fears beginning to dissipate. Fiona and Nolan's devious designs had underestimated her resilience. Finally, Tegan felt an unfamiliar yet liberating sense of freedom. The days following the arrests were filled with surreal headlines that portrayed the tangled web Tegan had narrowly escaped. Words like poison plot and inheritance scheme emblazed across the screen, stark reminders of her perilous journey. "Take a look," Rory said, pointing out a local news segment showing Fiona's arrest, her expression a paradox of fury and defeat. "It's so unreal," Tegan murmured, putting her phone down. Living with Fiona, trusting her, it all seemed a terrible illusion. "But you fought back," Rory reminded her staunchly. "You didn't let them win." Despite the reassurance, Tegan felt the scars of trust betrayed, not just losing her father, but the illusion of a family Fiona had manufactured. Later, Detective Fallon called with further developments. "Tegan, Nolan confessed. It turns out he orchestrated everything right from the toxic plot to the forged documents. Fiona was involved, but Nolan was the master planner." "Will she try to lay the blame entirely on him?" Tegan questioned. "It's possible," Fallon replied. "But with the evidence at hand, neither will escape serious charges. You'll need to testify, but they won't just walk away." With each passing day, Tegan started rebuilding her life, reconstructing from the betrayal-laden debris. Returning to her father's house felt like stepping into trenches made by Fiona's deceit. To reclaim it, Tegan hired professionals to cleanse the environment, expunging traces of the haunting memories. Slowly, the house became a home again, a sanctuary safe from treachery. Tegan's meetings with her lawyer to finalize the estate offered another layer of closure. Fiona and Nolan's attempt to embezzle funds had left a noticeable trail, now rectified, ensuring security in her inheritance. Weeks morphed into an unexpected peace for Tegan. Her focus shifted from survival against adversaries to nurturing a new path defined by hope and potential. The day she entered the courtroom to testify against Fiona and Nolan was pivotal. Tegan held her head high, steeled by conviction. Though facing Fiona's frigid stare and Nolan's insipid smugness was daunting, Tegan vowed they would not diminish her spirit. For the first time, the narrative was hers, and she was resolute in rewriting it on her terms. The courtroom buzzed with a tense energy that only deepened as Tegan took the stand, a beacon of resilience under the fluorescent lights. The prosecutor guided her through her account, each detail about the emails, the hidden camera footage, and the tampered food spilling forth like a cathartic release. With every syllable spoken, Tegan felt the empowerment of reclaiming what was taken from her. Fiona sat detached, eyes averted, but Nolan's smug demeanor flickered under the weight of mounting evidence, his confidence visibly eroding. After the testimony concluded, Tegan emerged into the crisp afternoon air, a sense of liberation swelling in her chest. Detective Fallon met her outside, her smile one of admiration. "You did brilliantly, Tegan." "They'll face the consequences," Fallon reassured her. As the detective's words settled into her mind, Tegan understood that justice was not merely about punishment. It was a path to closure, a testament to her resolve, and a tribute to her father's legacy. Weeks drifted by, and on one such day, she entered her father's study, sunlight sifting through the windows, casting a warm glow on everything it touched. The room's familiar scent of old books and cedar enveloped her like a gentle embrace. She found a photograph of her and her father from her college graduation on the desk. Gently, she traced the edge of the frame, whispering, "I did it, Dad. They're gone. We're safe now." The house resonated with newfound harmony, a sanctuary reborn from its previous shadows, now wholly hers. Determined to honor her father's memory and uphold his values, Tegan reached out to local charities, offering the house for small fundraisers and community events. Her father had always championed the spirit of giving, and through these endeavors, she felt his presence enduring. One serene evening on the back porch, as the sun retreated beyond the horizon, Rory joined Tegan, carrying 2 glasses of wine. To new beginnings, Rory toasted, her voice warm and full of promise. To freedom, Tegan echoed, clinking her glass against Rory's. As the sky melted into hues of orange and pink, Tegan realized a profound truth. The trials Fiona and Nolan had set into motion had not broken her. Instead, they had refined her strength, sowing seeds of resilience. Her future, now an unwritten canvas, was hers to paint, and she intended to make each brushstroke count.